to fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You're listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Minute. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. Well, welcome back to our continuing interview with Arthur Smitherman of the Canadian Constituents Party. Now, the other comment I wanted to give me was on the subject of corruption. A lot of people feel, certainly in Ontario, that the whole political system is corrupt and there's a total disconnect from the people who voted them into office in the first place, and a total lack of accountability, like no recall and things like that. How do you feel about that?
Well, we are a Dominion. In fact, I just finished arguing with a person about suing the government, and I do have some intimate knowledge with respect to a case on suing the government, namely attorney Rocco Galati taking the Comer Committee of Economic and Monetary Reform and suing the Minister of Finance, the Bank of Canada, and the Attorney General, or the Governor General, rather. So we are a Dominion. We are able to sue our government. Up to the 70s, there was a lot of suits against the government, and I think that immigration has diluted the wherewithal and the fabric of Canadian society. So they don't have a deterrent. You cannot sue your MPs or your MPPs. They've made an oath to the Queen. Now, there's a case, unfortunately I'm at loss for the name of the case, whereas an MPP, I believe it was sued, and the standard operating procedure with any case against the government is firstly to say that it's not justiciable. Then you've got to go through a series of hoops and jumps in a ping pong game back and forth between appeal courts, where the appeal courts, the Supreme Court, saying that yes, it is justiciable, and the ping pong ball bounces back and forth. But in this particular instance, the judge made it quite clear that the MPPs and the MPs make an oath to the Queen. The first responsibility is to represent the Queen. So in essence, they're sitting in government, sitting in the legislature, be it provincial or federal, and they're representing the Queen, unlike the common understanding that they're there to represent the constituents. And this is sort of transgressed, particularly over the last 30 years, where you don't even have an ethical responsibility of the of our elected representative to the constituents. So they're pandering to them to stay elected, and this is the economic reality we have of politics. Okay. So it's not really economically feasible. There's no instantaneous gratification in suing the government in the typical manner. However, one particular, I'll call it a venue of litigation that is available and is underutilized, is suing the court for an opinion or a decision. So that is reasonably inexpensive, and you get a fairly quick response for the government. But what you're getting back is an opinion. It's called a judgment, but in essence, it's an opinion. Now, I believe it's prospectively feasible, to potentially get a court order to make the lieutenant governor or the governor general pro-rogue government. However, that would probably entail a long, deductive reasoning, a series of reasoning arguments and decisions and judgments and so on and so forth. But I still think that would be a superior venue for the average Jack and Jill, rather than to take on the government in a typical suit such as Rocco Galati has done with the Bank of Canada. Okay, well, let's leave that point for now. It's an interesting point, and we'll probably come back to that.
I want to touch on another subject. What groups are you actually working with to give people an idea of where you see your organisation going?
Well, we don't really have any formal setups with respects to supporting activists. We are hoping that we can start, being more active and more supportive, supporting various think tanks, be they think tanks with respect to parents' rights, be they with respect to, concerns about hydro, and be they concerns about, mass immigration and Islamization of Canada and the province.
So on that note, really, how do you see your party growing? Where do you see the potential for growth with your party?
Well, we've actually had exponential growth in the last month. We've doubled our membership in 4 weeks. I see no reason to continue that exponential growth, particularly in view of the fact that Trudeau's called 5 by-elections and that we're trying to become a federal party in the very immediate future. So I'm actually going to be going to City Hall tomorrow to the protest, and hopefully I'm going to get my 250 signatures in one day, and we will be a federal party in very short order. That's my objective.
Okay. How do you try and reach out to ordinary citizens to gauge their concerns?
Well, I use a lot of social media. Ultimately, when we have our administration working properly and functioning with the most efficiency, I'm doing robo-polling, on an ongoing basis. I think there's a lot to be learned in terms of slicing and dicing the voters list down and really reaching out into the community and getting getting a feeling of the pulse of the temperament and the attitude and the needs, wants, and concerns of constituents.
Okay, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but do you have a policy platform, or are you in the process of forming it by talking to people on the ground, in the grassroots, so to speak?
Well, at the provincial level, we've made it known from the onset that we believe that an integrative solution is necessary, and the 4 key areas that we need to concentrate on are hydro, education, health, and the economy. So with respect to the economy, we're very fortunate to have models that we can study based on a number of U.S. states that adopted reforms that include a low corporate tax and a freezing or a fairly low minimum wage. And one of the things that I think that the vast majority of people don't understand in Ontario is that Ontario has one of the best mobility rates, upward mobility rates of any OSED jurisdictions. And what that means is people entering the workforce generally have a fairly rapid escalation in their salaries in a fairly short period of time. And in 1 to 4 years, they're jumping up from minimum wage to an average wage. Okay. So, there's a certain threshold that we can tolerate in Ontario to keep that going and to provide good labor, a good source of educated, responsible labor in Ontario. So there's going to be a threshold that you're going to run out of labor at some point, but it's absolutely vital to Ontario's economy that we do at least three things for our economy. One is ensure businesses have reasonable hydro rates, that they can compete with the rest of North America. The other one is lowering corporate taxation. And what we find in the other states that have adopted these reforms is that usually after a fairly short period of time, in 3 to 5 years, the tax base increases to such a level that it covers any loss of inward taxation to the province. So within about 3 to 5 years, you can really cover your base in terms of taxation just by the fact that there's more business going on. And of course, that affects a number of other areas, such as getting people off of unemployment and welfare.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people underestimate the importance of money traveling into the community, which has a multiplier effect of 1.5. So this makes for a far more healthier economy within the community, and I think a lot of people really overlook that when they're asking for, minimum wages of $15 an hour and so forth, which ultimately just drives jobs offshore.
It sounds to me as though you're almost following the Donald Trump model.
Well, no, quite the opposite. In fact, Donald Trump is following my model. I've been advocating for these things since 2002. Now, with respect to hydro, we are still in the process of resourcing a number of think tanks, and we're still doing our due diligence. But couple of things that seem to be blatantly obvious to us is that we need to void these wind farm contracts. We need to repeal the Green Energy Act, and we need to resource cheap power, which a lot of people don't seem to understand has always been available from Quebec. And all we need to do is enter long-term contracts to ensure that we have a long, unrestrained availability of cheap hydro. So we've been overproducing hydro and then overproducing expensive hydro, which green energy is expensive, and then paying to get rid of it, which makes no sense at all. So we think within about 5 to 8 years, we can really turn the hydro situation around in Ontario. With respect to the education system, I was very fortunate to attend two education seminars, the conferences. And from talking to the union president, I get a very different feeling from the union, and from the teachers than people tend to perceive. So teachers are in fact willing to work longer hours and have longer school years, providing they're working the same amount of time. But so they're not adverse to substantial reforms in the education system. In fact, they welcome them. They think that a bottom-up system would be far better than the top-down system that the Liberals have introduced. And I know they've been paid off substantially over the last few years, but there are that many good teachers in the system that we think change is possible. And of course, we're going to advocate for the elimination, the cancellation of the sex ed curriculum, and bring that back. But the teachers are a very important part of the economy. The Ontario teachers pension plan is a vital part of the global economy, and unfortunately, about 93 to 96 cents of our dollar is actually going to teachers' wages and pensions. And very unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of that money is going out of the province. Okay. So by building an economy, by bringing the province of opportunity back to its original status as a vibrant economy in Canada, we think that the teachers' pension plan will be investing in Ontario more, and our attitude with respect to unions, we think is going to be a win-win situation for the people of Ontario as well as the unions, because there's a lot of union labor here. If you're going to become a dominant party in Ontario, you have to recognize that. You cannot go to war with them. But where we want some latitude from the unions is with respect to investment, and we want to ensure that Ontario is getting adequate investment from the unions, and we want to give them an economy that encourages them to invest in Ontario rather than going offshore. Okay. So that's our general attitude towards the unions. It's not written as policy just yet, but this is something we're going to be working on and doing considerable due diligence with in the future.
Tomorrow, we will find out what the party's short-term and long-term goals are, and how effective they can be, and what difference does it make meeting face-to-face with others, and the importance of making contact with constituents and their concerns. Also, the surprising results from face-to-face contact, and more. Well, that's all tomorrow in the final part of the interview with Arthur-Smitherman of the Canadian Constituents Party. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, and I'm on Twitter at aradiocanada. That's EHRADIO Canada. I'm also on Facebook at the same address, A Radio Canada. I'm now on Gab at A Radio, that's EHRADIO. You can email me at aradiocanada@gmail.com. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com and you can listen to all my morning minutes there. And under Spreaker.com/A Radio, that's EHRADIO. And please click on the like button. You can find all my podcasts and all my morning minutes at aradio.wordpress.com and click on the Morning Minutes tab.